Hey fantasy fans, welcome back. It's Dan here with Treebeard Book Reviews, and today I'm going to be doing a review for Thud. This is the 34th book in the Discworld, the 7th book in the City Watch sub-series by Terry Pratchett. Really excited to do this review. As you guys know, Discworld is my favorite series of all time, so I'm really happy to get this one. So let's get into it.
Thank you to my patrons for supporting the channel and making it the best it can be.
Alright, so Thud. Thud is, like I mentioned, the 7th book in the sub-series that is the City Watch. Another Samuel Vimes book. Absolutely so glad to get another Sam Vimes book. And, you know, Thud doesn't really disappoint. Like, all the books within the City Watch are extremely well done. They're all real 5-star books in my opinion. Hasn't been a bad book in the series, and the series have just gotten better and better and better as it's gone along. And this book really just kind of, you know, is in that same vein where Terry Pratchett can just really, you know, dip into these the head of Sam Vimes and really just absolutely knock it out of the park with these characters. And I think it's because, you know, maybe Terry just puts a lot of himself into Sam Vimes. And I think it's just, you know, like Sam Vimes isn't the sharpest tool in the shed always, but my goodness, when he gets his teeth sunk into something, there's no getting him off. There's no shaking him off. There's no him not letting go. So let's talk about the story of Thud. Go through the plot. Go through some of the characters, some of the themes that are in here. I'm not going to say this is going to be spoiler free because I really just want to talk about the book. So why don't we get into that? Plot of Thud. So at the time of this is in the Discworld, this is a few days from the events of the Coombe Valley, I guess, massacre, ambush, whatever you want to call it, which is a giant war between the dwarves and the troll races on the Discworld. So this is what's kind of looming in the background, where there's all these kind of racial tensions going on in this book, where the dwarves hate the trolls hate the dwarves. They want to kick the stuffing out of each other. But then what's happened is there's been a murder inside of a dwarf, I guess, tunnel in Ankh Morpork. And the dwarf that was murdered was a very kind of influential dwarf. He was a deep dweller, where they're kind of like the mystics, or the they're kind of like not the shamans, I want to say, but they're kind of like the authorities on dwarf culture. They kind of decide what is a dwarf. And so, you know, because you have your city dwarves who are, you know, your more modern dwarves, but they kind of like want to harken back to that, you know, in the mine, in the dark, like just digging away and being a happy little dwarf. And these ones, you know, these dark, deep dwellers, they're all about kind of like tradition. They cover themselves in all black so they cannot see the light, and they're like kind of almost like extremists a little bit, but they're very interesting. And like one of these Grags, what they're called, they're leaders of the Deep Dwellers, has been murdered, and the dwarves are blaming a troll for it, which is really just to kind of start up another war. So that's really where the story leads off. Sam Vimes is dealing with the tensions of these two races of trolls and dwarves fighting on the streets, and he has to stop them, but then he also has to kind of solve this murder so that a bigger war does not happen. That just, you know, almost starts like a just fighting on the streets of killing all these characters. So there's that going on, and there's also some tension within the watch where, you know, you have like dwarf and troll watchmen, and they're resigning and they're putting their badges down. And then the watch also had to have its first vampire watchman join the watch. And as you know with Sam Vimes, he does not like vampires. He is not a fan of the race of vampires, and he does not want one on the watch. And so it's interesting to see this new character of Sally, who is a vampire, joining the watch. So that was really good. I'm going to talk about characters a little bit later, but just kind of this overall, like, what's going on right now in the book. There's a lot going on. And, you know, Sam Vimes, he's one of those guys, like I said, once he sticks his nose in, there's no pulling him out of it. He's going to solve the case, whether it kills him, right? So, I really like that story going on. But then you also have the one thing, the anchoring point of Sam Vimes is this book is his son, Sam Jr., where Sam is 1 year old. And, you know, Sam's mission in this whole book is to get home and read Where's My Cow to his 1 year old son, Sam. He has to do it every day at 6 o'clock, and that is his real focal point in this book. And his relationship with his son, and how his son really is like, not really like, well, he is the light of his life, but he's also really the reason why he does what he does. Because at a certain point, once, from what I assume in this book and reading it, is when, you know, police officers have children, they actually start policing the world for their children, to make the world a better place for their kids, right? So I really like that theme that Terry's playing on. There's some really strong themes going on in this book of you know, racism, of, you know, stereotypes, or racism of like, oh, these certain watchmen don't like having a vampire watchmen, or also the trolls, and like just trolls and dwarves hating each other, stereotypes of what a troll should believe and what a dwarf should believe. And then also the theme of like who watches the watchers, you know, because there's actually a funny little like plot going on with A.E. Pessimal. So he is a character who has been sent by the Office of Veterinary to investigate the watch and look at their expenses and making sure that they're, you know, they're worth the cost of what they cost to run in the city. So I like that kind of theme going on. But then just, you know, Sam Vimes, like, you know, dealing with the type of anger that he has, because he's a very angry person, and it's all about kind of containing that anger and directing it. So really, really like that within the story. But there's a lot of big themes at play, a lot of great plot points to go on with. But let's kind of get into the characters now, because the characters are really what make the story. So Sam Vimes, let's start with the characters, and we're going to talk about Sam Vimes. You know, main character. Sam Vimes is very complex. Like, he's not the smartest character in the Discworld or even in the Watch by any means. But my goodness, he has so much conviction, and he is an honest, you know, honest lawman. They're always saying as honest as Sam Vimes, kind of, and you know, he's by the book. And I really just love this character's conviction at this stage. You know, he knows who he is. He's one of those guys too. Like, he's there's a certain part in the book where he's telling like the other Watchmen, like, we're all doing overtime, and some of you are gonna love it and some of you are gonna hate it, but I don't care, because they all know that he's gonna be there doing it with them, right? Like, he's just a pure copper, like Sam, and he is a real force of nature in a sense that just do not get in his way. He's gonna solve the case whether you like it or not, and and if you're doing something, you don't want Sam Vimes on your case, really. So really love that theme going on here. But the big thing with Sam Vimes is you really see, you know, he lives for his son, and especially, which I thought was a very emotional point in the book for me, is when, you know, he has to be home at 6 o'clock every day to read Where's My Cow to his son. And, you know, and there's also this moments where he's like, yeah, I cannot miss it, because if I miss it for a good reason, I'm going to miss it for a bad reason. And, you know, I don't want to be a minute late, because, you know, a minute becomes 5, and sometimes it becomes 30, and then you just miss it altogether. So I really love this conviction of Sam Vimes here, and just that love he has for his son, and that dedication he has to them. But it's also fun to, you know, how this story, you know, does actually play a pivotal role in the end of the book, because it's really his anchor. His son is his anchor, because there is an entity that you encounter in this book that eventually does take over Sam Vimes and would cause him to go insane. But it's really this story and this love for his son that he's able to break that down, and he's able to, you know, that is the focal point of his life. And the one thing I like about Sam Vimes too, so there's that's a really huge moment in the end of the book with that, and I just love how that's done and how Terry did that. And it's a very emotional scene too, because you have these emotions that you see through Sam Vimes when he first reads this book to his son, and then just at the end how it's his anchor to keep him sane and, you know, almost banish this entity. So it's absolutely gorgeous. But the thing with like Sam Vimes is, like, he's not like a hero, right? But the dwarves and the trolls see him as an entity that will give them the opportunity to save themselves, right? So they realize that this is a problem, this Coombe Valley where they've been fighting for centuries, but they can't just stop fighting, essentially. They need a catalyst, and Sam Vimes is that catalyst, which I absolutely adored, him being that catalyst. So, and the thing is, like, you know, Sam Vimes, you know, knows that this is not going to be a quick fix, and it won't be fixed overnight, but by damn God, like, he's going to make them try, right? So love Sam Vimes. So some other characters I really want to talk about. Just some of the Watchmen, going over them quick. Angua, great in this book. You know, a lot more screen time for Angua than in past books. I think she had a really good kind of dynamic with Sally, where werewolves are like the enemies of vampires, and just them pairing together, and how she doesn't want to like her, but she can't help herself from liking Sally, and it's kind of vice versa, it goes both ways. Really liked Angua in this book. Carrot, a lot less Carrot. Carrot's really kind of taking a back seat in this one. He's just so reliable and so kind of dependable. Carrot has had his books, I think, with Men at Arms. That is Carrot's book. This book really, it's focused on Sam Vimes. So really like that Carrot's taking a little bit of a backseat, but Carrot is fantastic. Going on with some more, like Detritus and Cheery, they're always great. Cheery is a female dwarf, Detritus is a troll. And yeah, Detritus has, he takes another young troll under his wing in this book, and I really like their dynamic. It's not like overly focused on, but it's there. And, Detritus kind of surprises you sometimes in these books, and he comes up with something wise or just clever, and really glad he's there. And so I'm trying to think, Nobby and Colin, again, they took a little bit of a backseat, but they're there, they're kind of funny. But the focus, again, is really on Sam, his anger, just kind of his doggedness, really. All right, some more characters quickly that I just want to talk about are Sybil. I love Sybil. She's so good in this book. She's good in every book. Sybil's like just an amazing character. And you just see the love she has for her husband, making sure he's actually eating his greens and his vegetables and his fruits and not just eating bacon all day, or because he would. And but understanding her husband. She knows him so well. And she knows the conviction he has, and she supports him in every way. And she's proud of him, too. And there's funny moments, as her husband is such a famous person in the Discworld, and Ankh Morpork, and he gets himself in the news a lot. And even when there's bad news, she's kind of saving the clippings of him in the newspaper, and just she's so proud of him, and you just love to see that love there. Another character is Willikins, that's Sam Vimes' butler, and just how deadly this guy is, he's hilarious. He's like Alfred, but like if Alfred was Batman kind of thing. This butler's amazing. I love Willikins. He's always really good. I'm glad he was in this book as well. And he's just one of those characters, like, he's in the floating around in the background, but my goodness, you're glad he's on Sam Vimes' side as well. So really liked him. Vetinari was good. He was in it. There's a moment where Sam Vimes stumped Vetinari, which is kind of nice to see. And, well, Sam Vimes does that to these leading characters, because you meet, Rise Ryston again, who's the king of the dwarves. You met the fifth elephant. Sam Vimes is able to stump that character as well. So, Sam Vimes doesn't do well with people in power, and he wrong-foots them because they should be wrong-footed. So I really like that dynamic going on. So there's a lot of great character dynamic going on in this book. But really, just overall, this is a fantastic Discworld story. Does all the things that I like with the Guards book. You're in Ankh Morpork. It's just very cozy and homey, but you're getting down to this investigation. Sam Vimes is on the case. There's lots of like wonderful themes that play, very hard themes that are really hit home in the world today. Like as I mentioned, of like racism and stereotypes. Who watches the Watchers, and then also like a father's love for his child too, and it's there's so much at play in this book, and I'm so glad I read it. When I read it, it's hard to rank all these Discworld books and these City Watch books because they're all so phenomenal. And to kind of rate this book, I gave it a 5-star on Goodreads. It deserves a 5-star on Goodreads. This is going to be my S tier for me for the Thud, but just thinking about like in terms of where I would rank it in the City Watch is really hard. Reflecting back on Night Watch now, because it's been a few months since I've read it, that was an absolutely fantastic book too. Whew, it's tough. I don't think I can actually safely do a ranking right now. I'd have to sleep it on a little bit more. But yeah, this is just a beautiful story. One of my favorite Discworld books. I think anyone who's a fan of Sam Vimes or a fan of Terry Pratchett, you're going to like this book. And like any kind of Discworld book, you could just jump in here and you'd be fine. Like, yeah, you wouldn't know the characters as well as you would if you read it like I have, where I've read them in kind of an order. But saying that, like, you could pick it up pretty quick. You understand the relationships these characters have with one another. So really like that. Again, just a fantastic Discworld book. And I guess to put the question to you guys, like, comment down below, what is your favorite City Watch book? And now that I've read them all, I can't pick a favorite one. I'm going to cop out and probably say Night Watch still, but just by a little bit. Like, just by a little bit. but they're all so good. So yeah, comment down below. Let me know what you think, guys. There's going to be more Discworld reviews to come. I want to have them all reviewed on this channel. But thank you guys as always, and we'll see you on the next one. Cheers.